Hey guys, today we are doing a book review. This is going to be a book review for The Rage of Dragons by Evan Winter. That is the first book in the Burning series, and it is one that came out a few years ago. This is a book that I had heard so many positive things about when it first released and when it was first being picked up on Booktube. But in the last couple of weeks I've seen a lot more negative opinions on it, which is interesting because that's not something I've seen much of before then. So let's jump straight in with my thoughts on The Rage of Dragons by Evan Winter. So we almost exclusively follow our main protagonist, our main point of view character called Tau. Tau is a lesser common. He's very much a part of the lower caste in this world, and he is part of the Chosen. Now this is a race of people, this is a nation of people who live on a peninsula, and they are attached to this much larger continent, this much larger area where there are people constantly raiding and attacking and fighting them for their land and for their right to be there. So as a woman in this culture, there is a very small chance, I think about 1 in 1,000 chance, that when you come of age, you will be able to use some form of magic to communicate with dragons and become what is known as an entreater. Now, this means that you can call dragons to come and aid you. There are other lesser, not so big and impactful magic that can be used by these women as well, but the big one that they are all aiming for, the highest calling you can have, is to become an entreater and call down dragons. As a man, particularly a noble man, a man with strong bloodlines, you would also be able to benefit from these women, from these gifted, as they will be able to do something known as enraging you, and that will be able to make you larger, stronger, make you a much better fighter. And that is something that the nobles are able to have done to them, whereas the lessers, the common folk, not so much. So we follow Tau in this very strong caste system. So the lessers are very much lessers, even as the commons, there are lesser commons and higher commons. So this is a very class-based system. And then you have the petty nobles, and then you have the really big, strong, well-known nobles, as well as the royal bloodline as well. And this is such a huge part of this book, is about this caste system, about the injustice that there is in this caste system, how the lessers and the commons are treated in comparison to the nobles, and that is a huge part of this book. So the real inciting incident here in The Rage of Dragons is when Tau goes for his testing. This is where he goes and fights to see if he is worthy to join a military academy and become part of the military. At this testing, Tau accidentally enrages and humiliates a minor noble, and instead of backing down, which would be a wise thing to do, Tau unfortunately plows on with his pig-headed arrogance and ignorance, and he offends them more and more until he is called into a duel in which his father steps into this duel for Tau against one of these nobles. His father has absolutely no chance. It is not a fair fight at all. It is absolutely no chance for him to survive, and this sets Tau on a revenge kick. So the vast majority of this book is a huge revenge plot. It is Tau fighting for justice, wanting to get a just result from what has happened, but as well as that, it's not just about justice, it's about horrible, petty, violent revenge as well. This is not about being purely just, it's about Tau feeling the need to have vengeance. All in all, I would say that your enjoyment of Rage of Dragons is going to be very heavily dependent on your enjoyment of Tau as a character. He is 99% of the point of view for this book. I really liked Tau as a character. Now, people's complaints about Tau are that he is stupid, he does stupid things, he makes very poor decisions, and I think that is true. It is true that Tau does make really poor decisions. Is he stupid? Absolutely. However, I think it is understandable. I understand why Tau is like that, and in lots of ways I sympathise and I empathise, and I actually think that his fight for justice is super important. That is a story that I love. Where this becomes grey and difficult is that it's not just about his fight for justice, but it's also about his fight for vengeance. He doesn't actually want justice, he just wants to kill people. And that makes him a very interesting, very morally grey character. And I actually think that's very interesting. Now, I don't always want my characters in fiction to make great decisions. I think stories are more interesting when people don't always make great decisions. And I actually think that is a positive thing, because people in real life don't make great decisions all the time. People do stupid stuff so often, and I think it is unreasonable to expect our characters in fantasy and in fiction to always make good decisions. And sometimes they make spur of the moment decisions, and sometimes they make angry decisions, and they are enraged and they do stupid things. And I think that rage is totally reasonable. I think that's totally understandable, and I get that as a character trait, and I have no issues with how Evan Winter has written Tao in this book. Another criticism I've seen recently of The Rage of Dragons is that it's essentially one massive fight sequence, and that is a pretty fair assessment, I feel. There are moments of reaction and inflection and considering what's going on. A large percentage of this book, however, is fights, and it is Tao training, and it is very military. It is very much a military fantasy, and that's something that you need to be aware of going into this, is that it is a military fantasy. And if that's not what you're looking for, that's fine, but this might not be for you right now. If you are, however, looking for a military fantasy, I will say that I think that the fight scenes and the combat scenes here are written very well. I think the training scenes feel very relatable as well. They're very understandable, and I think they portray this idea of training very well, coming from someone who's never been in that situation. I don't know how realistic that is, but I think that it is portrayed very well. And I get a real feeling of being there with Tao throughout this, of this difficulty getting to know people, of this camaraderie that is built, and I think it's done very well. The combat scenes are always interesting, they always serve a purpose, they're not just about who wins and who loses, there's often character development going on as well, and I think that's very important in a book where there is so many of those scenes and so many vital character moments happen within those scenes. I think it's really important it does that, and I do think it does that really well. I can see how people might feel it got a little bit one note though, and I can see that. If you are looking for more different things to happen, if you're looking for something more introspective and reflective, that isn't really this book. I will say, however, that I think that Tao does grow a lot through this book as a character. I think that he does grow. It doesn't mean that he negates his character flaws. His character flaws of being arrogant and brash and enraging and violent are still there. But he does grow as a character and he does change, and I think that's a really positive thing that Evan Winter has managed to do, where his character is changing and evolving and growing, but he's not a completely different character. He's not changed entirely in the course of one book. He is still Tao, he still has the same flaws, if slightly lessened, and he still has the same motivations, if slightly achieved. All in all, I think the writing here was really good and solid. The prose was engaging and interesting without being over the top. I really love this book. I love this book for what it was. If you are looking for a literary style of fantasy, this isn't for you. If you want military fantasy with a character that you can engage with and understand and get his motivations, even if he's not particularly likable, this is for you. And if you want a revenge story or a story of someone fighting for justice for their family, again, this is a story for you. I would highly recommend Rage of Dragons if that sounds good to you. And this was a 5-star read for me. Absolutely loved it, no doubt whatsoever. I will be picking up The Fires of Vengeance Book 2 at some point, probably in the next few months. Hopefully, so there's not a huge gap between me reading Fires of Vengeance and when Book 3 comes out, although I don't know when that's going to be at the moment. I hope you've enjoyed that review. If you want to see more of my stuff, there should be a video up here for you to go and have a look at. Click the like button if you enjoyed this video, and I'll hopefully see you guys again soon.